On today's episode, I'm going to show you how I achieve a good fitting tenon, coming up right now. So this is part 4 in the series of the Asian-inspired nightstand. Now maybe you're saying, oh, I'm not interested in making a nightstand. But each one of these episodes is packed full of good woodworking knowledge, tips, and techniques that help you raise your game in your woodworking knowledge. So far, we've showed you how to prepare your stock, how to cut out some legs and do mortises. Mitch showed you how to do a precision mitered drawer box. On this episode, I'm going to show you how to achieve good fitting tenons, as well as how to cut out this rectangular section out of one stock piece of wood here. Also too, I'm going to show you how to make good fitting and clean, tight half lap joints. All that and more. So let's get started right now on how to do these tenons. So here's my setup. I have my stacked dado set in here, and I have it raised up 1/4 of an inch. That's what I want to be taking off. I then have my miter gauge here with a scrap sacrificial board screwed to it. And what this does is, as you can see, I've already made a cut through my sacrificial board. And what this does is it not only helps keep pressure even against my workpiece, but as the blade exits on the back side, I won't get any tear out from it. I also too have a scrap piece of wood here clamped to the fence, and from the notch to this scrap piece here, that's 3/4 of an inch. That's exactly what I want the tenon to be in length. Now, I could set a 3/4 inch stacked dado set up in here. This set actually goes up to 1 inch, but I usually just run it with a 1/2 inch in there, and then I just move my piece. So I'll be making 2 passes with this. Okay, there's my tenon. Now, I usually like to leave these a little fat and clean them up with a shoulder plane to sneak up on that perfect fit for my mortise. All right, I'll do the other side and move on to the next step. This is the next step that we're trying to achieve. I need to cut these square slots out. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. As you can see, I have it all marked out on my board, and if you wanted, you could cut this on the table saw, remove that piece, then cut these sections out, and then you could put this piece, glue it back on. That's probably the easiest way to do it, but you'll have a small glue seam lines there. And I didn't want to do that with mine, so I'm going to show you another method for this. I'm going to drill these out, and then I'll clean up the edges with the chisel. Now what I don't want is I don't want the bit to come all the way through, because as that bit comes through the bottom, it's going to blow that apart, making it really ugly. So I have this set so it stops just over halfway through the depth, and then I'll turn the board over and do the other side. And then I'll do the same to the other side, and it's just a matter of taking a chisel around both sides and cleaning that up. So from the series of holes here that we just drilled, I can use my chisel to establish the corners and then remove this waste here. Now, just like with the drill press, I'll work the chisel to about halfway and then flip it over and do the other thing, again, to prevent any kind of blowout. And then to really get these nice and smooth and flat, I like to use my Shinto rasp to go in there and clean that up. The Shinto rasp is basically like a bunch of bandsaws just kind of all stuck together. I have fine on one side and coarse on the other. This is a great little tool, especially it falls in right around 20 bucks. With the slots done on it, I now, from the plans, measured with my compass and put this arch on it. And that's just going to get simply cut out on the bandsaw and then sanded and cleaned up. All right, it's time that I have to trim this tenon down to fit into my mortise. Now, on Mitch's plans, they're incredibly thorough, and I could probably follow those, but just out of routine and habit, I always like to custom match the tenon to the mortise. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up on here, and with my pencil, I'm going to transfer those edges. And now, and that's the material that I have to remove, and I can just simply do that with a handsaw. So I've trimmed the tenon so the height will fit into our mortise. However, my tenon itself, well, it's a little fat, it's a little wide, and I got to trim that down. Now, I always like to make the mortise first, because even though that this was a 1/4 inch on the mortising machine, by the time I go through and clean it up with a chisel, it could get a little wider than a 1/4 inch. If I made the tenon first, and according to the plans it's 1/4 inch, then I put it in, it would be too loose and sloppy. So I always leave these a little bit thicker, and I can shave down equally on the tenon with a shoulder plane. Not much, just a little at a time. And we'll test the fit. Okay, I still have a little bit more to go. Now, if you don't have a shoulder plane, I like to use the Shinto rasp. It has coarse and fine on one side, on both sides, and so I can, by keeping this flat, I can shave my tenons down to fit the mortise. And again, I'll test the fit. A little snug. You can see I have a little bit more to take off. Just up here. Just a little bit there. Take that off and test the fit. Much better, much better. Okay, and then after this, what I like to do is I like to label the leg to the rail here so I don't get them confused from left to right sides. The front rail is actually made up of some 3/4 inch stock, and they're pieces, they're small pieces, and they'll overlap each other, making a half-lap joint. And again, I'm going to be making this half-lap joint with the stack dado. But using a small piece like this and holding it, it's a little nerve-wracking for me. So what I'm going to do first is I will remove the material on a large piece of wood, and then I can just simply cut this to length. Now with the stop block in the miter saw, I can cut this off to exactly that length that I need. With the half lap joints done, it's now time to do some assembly of that front rail. With the front rail all done, I now have to join it to the legs, and the method I'm going to use is some dowel pins. Using some dowel center pins, I can now find that position on the leg. So the last thing that has to be done on this rail is I need to put this stop groove in. This groove is what we're going to be using later to attach the top to the rest of the table. So the setup I have here, I have a 1/4 inch bit into the router table. I have it a 1/2 inch away from my fence, and I've adjusted my fence to, this is going to be my start and stop. What I mean by that is I have these arrows telling me where I want the groove to start and stop at. And what I'll do is I will start with this high and the arrow lined up with this part of my fence. I will drop it down on there, push it across, and then once I reach the other end, lift it up. And now I have my stopped groove in it. Last thing to do is just do a dry fit. Not too bad. Coming together pretty good. Well, that wraps up part 4 in this series. And on the next episode on Mitch's channel, he's going to show you how to make the drawer for that lower shelf carcass. It's going to have some half-blind dovetails to it. And he's going to show you how to get this for a precise fit into that shelf carcass. So tune in for that, and of course, more from Mitch. Until next time, if you have questions regarding any woodworking, feel free to write me at woodchoppingtime@gmail.com. I will do my best to answer those questions for you, because after all, our whole goal to this is to make you a better woodworker. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and keep on dancing.